Discovered. The heartwarming moment I found strength on the alpha's shoulders during the mating shift of a lifetime. Jake stood on the fairgrounds, surrounded by the buzz and swirl of excitement, the air thick with the scent of popcorn and cotton candy. But beneath that thrill, his heart pounded with a weight he couldn't shake. Could he really pull this off? The annual county fair was supposed to be a highlight, a joyful celebration amid the fields and skies that framed his small town. Yet, all he could think about was the shadow of his family's struggles. He watched his fellow townsfolk from the sidelines, a blend of envy and longing filling his chest. They laughed, rode the Ferris wheel, and relished their carefree lives. For Jake, however, the fair was a reminder of the bag of worries he carried home ever since his father returned from war, changed and haunted. His mother worked nights, scrubbing floors and serving food, just to make sure there was enough for the three of them. His dreams of leaving for college shimmered like stars in a murky sky distant, out of reach. But then he saw him, Alex. Wealth draped around him like a cashmere blanket, laughter rolled off his tongue like smooth honey. Jake wasn't supposed to care about the popular kids, but there was an unguarded sincerity in Alex's eyes that snagged Jake's attention. He sighed, knowing the invisible barrier between their worlds. Yet, today, against the backdrop of carnival lights, there was an unexpected warmth growing, a shared yearning that bridged their differences. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Jake delved deeper into this flickering bond, disaster struck. A rumor ignited, whispered like wildfire. Did you hear what Jake's up to? The murmur swirled around him, thrum of every malicious word puncturing his chest like barbed wire. He felt the heat of shame wash over his face as he caught Alex's confused glance, the betrayal of loyalty writ large in every sneer he faced. But here came Alex, stepping forward, a knight cloaked in confidence. "Back off," he declared, fists clenched, voice steady against the storm of judgment. In that split second, Jake saw not just a friend, but a heart ready to challenge every stereotype, every preconceived notion pinning them both down. As they stood side by side, the air thickened with the weight of a million unsaid things, but also with a spark of hope. Empowered by Alex's loyalty, Jake felt a fire ignite within him. Inspired by his father's sacrifices and the strength he found in camaraderie, he would create something bigger than himself. A charity event to support local veterans at the fair, a beacon that would turn the tide of negativity into something beautiful. He could channel the whispers scattering around him into a rally for change, uniting old friends and new allies. But now doubt crept in like the evening mist. Would the town back him? Or would the weight of those cruel rumors silence everything he worked for? Jake turned to Alex, heart racing, contemplating their friendship's strength. Could they stand against the tide together? Would courage serve as the muscle to lift their dreams from the dirt of disparagement? With a life-changing choice dangling before him, Jake took a deep breath, ready to fight for not just himself, but for them both. Would they rise together, or would fear redefine their paths forever? With a mixture of hope and anxiety swirling in his chest, Jake leaned closer to Alex, fighting to keep his voice steady. "We need to come up with a plan. I want to put together a benefit for the veterans during the fair. It could make a difference." Alex's brow furrowed, the warmth in his eyes quickly shifting to determination. "I'm in. We can reach out to my dad. He's got connections. We can definitely make this happen." For the first time all day, Jake felt a glimmer of excitement. Together, they could take on the looming shadows. Encouraged by Alex's support, he let his imagination wander. They could run a booth, host games, and even put on a talent show. The thought sent a surge of energy through him. But as the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the fairgrounds, doubt crept back in. What would the townsfolk really think? He remembered the sneers, the hurtful whispers. But what if people don't come? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What if they don't care? We can't think like that. Alex placed a reassuring hand on Jake's shoulder. This is bigger than us. We're talking about our veterans. They need the support. Besides, if we get the word out right, people will want to be involved. Their eyes locked, and Jake felt the current of shared determination. It didn't matter how hard the fight would be if they stood together. This collaboration was no longer just about him, it was about a community. A united front against whispers of doubt. Artfully crafting flyers and brainstorming ideas, the boys worked late into the night, enveloped by the fair's vibrant energy. They shared secrets and laughter, their worries easing, replaced with snippets of hope. Maybe we could incorporate a dunk tank? Jake suggested, grinning, imagining Alex's dad as the main target. Everyone would love that. Not if you keep challenging me to throw darts at balloons. The playful banter acted as fuel. With each idea they bounced off one another. Jake could feel the spark igniting a fire not just in their hearts, but in their hopes for the upcoming event. Yet just as night fell, and the lights of the fair glimmered like stars around them, insecurity flickered. A distant voice pierced through their bubble. What are you losers doing? Planning another disaster? It was one of the instigators, accompanied by a group of snickering friends. Jake's stomach knotted. He could almost feel the weight of their stares piercing through what they'd built together, but Alex didn't flinch. We're building something amazing, and you're not invited, he shot back, his voice steady and strong. The wit in Alex's response lit a fire in Jake, bolstering his resolve. With a shaky breath, Jake stood taller. You don't know us. The words left his mouth before he had a chance to filter them. And you want to stop us? The ridicule fell away as the boys walked past, hand in hand. Jake realized that this was the kind of strength he had yearned for, not just the absence of fear, but the courage to defy it. Still, as they moved forward, the weight of doubt lingered. Would their effort truly change anything? The question hung in the air like a gust of wind, stirring his restless thoughts. As the fairground lights flickered and the laughter of the crowd faded, Jake's heart raced with the thrill of what lay ahead. Could they really pull this off? Would they manage to turn fear and judgment into a celebration of compassion? The night was silent, but all Jake could hear were the beating drums of possibility. It was time for a comeback. Little did he know, what lay ahead would test not just their friendship, but their very belief in each other. What if the very people Jake sought to unite turned against him? The next day dawned bright and clear, the kind of day that could only be classified as fair weather. Jake felt the rush of excitement in the pit of his stomach as he and Alex roamed through the fairgrounds, now bustling with vendors setting up their booths. The scent of cotton candy wafted through the air, mixed with the sound of laughter and chatter rising like a brilliant melody. They were armed with flyers, a colorful display of their intent to help veterans, and a plan bursting with potential. Look at all these people, Jake said, marveling at the scene before him. It feels alive. Alex grinned, a cocky edge to his expression. And we're going to make it even better, he declared, bolstering Jake's spirits. Together, they approached a few vendors, explaining their idea. Most were willing to donate a small item for fundraising, while others nodded in support. The energy around Jake started charging him. This was his chance to make a ripple in the community. As the hours passed, they managed to gather a mix of prizes, game ideas, and even a local band willing to play for free. With every conversation, Jake felt a flicker of hope ignite more brightly. Their efforts weren't in vain. Yet, as the sun began to dip lower, tenseness crept in, gnawing at the edge of his confidence. He couldn't shake the lingering memory of last night's ridicule. What if the crowd turns on us? He murmured, voice shaky. What if they yell and throw things? Maybe they really don't care after all. Alex raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. That's exactly what we can't think. We're doing this for them, remember? Fear helps no one. Jake took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. There was undeniable truth to what Alex said, but the doubt still loomed like a storm cloud over his heart. As the fair lifted its energy to new heights, something shifted in Jake. The doubts began to entwine with the laughter and excitement surrounding him. He found strength in glimpses of the support they were gathering. It felt like a moment of clarity, shining amidst the chaos of uncertainty and insecurity. But that was when he saw them, the group of instigators lurking by a food stall, laughing among themselves. Jake's pulse quickened. They eyed Jake and Alex, then erupted into loud, mocking laughter. A surge of anger filled him, mixing with that creeping doubt. Jake felt the fight rising within him, and he turned to Alex, expecting to see fear mirrored in his friend's eyes. Instead, he found unwavering determination. "Ignore them. They don't matter," Alex said firmly, as if reading Jake's mind. With the determination radiating from Alex, Jake felt a sense of purpose pushing back against the fear. "You're right," he murmured, squaring his shoulders. "They don't matter." Together, they faced the laughter and lifted their heads high. Across the way, a few townsfolk turned to observe the scene. Jake could sense them shifting uneasily, torn between amusement and compassion. It dawned on him that maybe they weren't as indifferent as he feared. Maybe they simply needed a spark. Taking a deep breath, Jake shouted, "A benefit for our heroes. We need everyone to join us. Our veterans deserve our love." His voice echoed through the fairgrounds, pulling in curious glances. The laughter slowly halted. Confused expressions replaced it, leavened with curiosity more than mockery. Instinctively, people started to gather around, intrigued. In that fleeting moment, Jake's heart soared. Maybe this would work. Maybe they could build something beautiful, something that would spark change. But just as hope began to rise, a voice broke through the noise, mocking again. "What makes you think anyone cares, loser?" Jake's joy tumbled, uncertainty bubbling back to the surface. Alex clenched his fists, ready to rebuff the insult. They stood on the cusp of something profound, and the test of their resolve was about to unfold. In that moment, Jake had to decide. Would he let fear swallow him whole or step boldly into the unknown, ready for a fight to protect the very cause they had united for? Fear still lingered, but amidst it all, hope flickered brighter. Would this be the moment that shatters his doubts, or would this spark be extinguished before it ever had the chance to blaze? The crowd fell silent, and Jake felt time hang in the air. He could feel the weight of every stare upon him, some curious, others still mockingly amused. The laughter had dwindled, but the remnants of doubt clawed at his resolve like mist creeping in on a dark night. He took a step forward, the thrill in his chest battling the anxiety swirling around. "What makes you think?" He paused, focusing on the dismissive voice that had pierced through his moment of bravery. A tall figure loomed in the crowd, arms crossed and smirk plastered across his face. "Anyone cares, loser?" Jake felt a fire igniting within him. It wasn't about a few harsh words, it was about the community, about those veterans who had sacrificed so much. "You're wrong," he called back, finding his voice stronger than before. "People care. We just need to show them why." Alex positioned himself beside Jake, radiating solidarity. "We're all here today not just for fun, but to give back. To those who fought for our freedom. That matters." Slowly, murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. A woman to the left nodded, her face a map of concern and curiosity. There was something in the way she looked at Jake. It was as if she was starting to see past the commotion, seeing the raw intention behind their effort. "Who's with us?" Jake shouted, channeling every ounce of passion he could muster. "This isn't just some fair ride. This is about making a difference. Let us stand up for our heroes." The instigator rolled his eyes, but behind him, people began to shift closer, whispering excitedly to one another. A few folks clapped, tentative at first, but as if propelled by a hidden force, they began to cheer, turning the tide. A small band struck up a tune that resonated with the spirit of the fair, sweet notes weaving through the air like magic. Jake felt energy pouring in from every direction, lifting the moment to an unexpected crescendo. With every clap, every cheer, the space between Jake's doubts and aspirations shrank. The crowd grew, and suddenly it felt manageable, larger than just him and Alex. "Let us do this," Jake declared, pumping his fist into the air. "Let us show them what we can really do together." The roar of the crowd echoed back, a symphony of voices unified in purpose. Then, from the back, he heard the familiar shout of a veteran, Mr. Thompson, who lived 3 houses down. There was pride etched in his brow, and the way he stood sent warmth surging through Jake. "Count me in. Let us make this a day worth remembering." The chain reaction was incredible. Folks began stepping forward, giving their time, promising support, offering connections, all fueled by a moment of passion, igniting the dormant empathy of the community. But amidst the joy, an unsettling twist brushed against Jake's mind. He remembered the doubters, but now they weren't just enemies. They were a challenge, a reflection of the fractured hearts that surrounded him. If they could be pulled in, would that mean they would find strength in their darkness too? As the fair grew lively with newfound spirit, Jake noticed the instigator lingering by the edge of the crowd. His expression shifted, eyes searching. It all felt like a tightrope walk, balancing between acceptance and resistance. That was when Jake realized he had no idea how hard the real work was going to be. It would take more than one moment of courage to bridge these divides. "Are we really doing this?" he whispered to Alex over the busyness. Fear danced again, but something else was there too, a rising belief. Would they be able to draw in the scared hearts, those who had sneered, to join in? Would it all come together, or was this just the beginning of the battle? As cheers erupted, Jake knew they had just stepped into the fray. The path ahead loomed steep, but the thrill of that first step pulled him forward. The real fight for community acceptance and understanding had only just begun. With hope thrumming in his chest, Jake couldn't ignore the thrill of the unknown ahead. What if this push for unity opened doors he never knew existed? What if he discovered strength through connection, even with those who doubted him? The tide had turned, but could they keep it rolling? Would the spark they ignited be enough to blaze into something truly beautiful? Jake's heart was racing as the noise of the fair enveloped him, vibrant colors spinning around in a whirlwind of activity and commotion. The excitement they had sparked was palpable, buzzing through the crowd just like the electricity in the air before a summer storm. He looked around, catching flashes of encouragement on faces that had once been indifferent, even hostile. "Let us keep this momentum," Alex yelled over the thrumming music, his voice full of determination. "We can set up booths for information, organize some activities, and bring in speakers. We need to connect everyone to our cause." The suggestion struck Jake like a bolt of lightning. Ideas began to rush in like waves crashing on the shore. "Yeah, let us have a bake sale to fundraise for that veterans organization down on Main Street," Jake replied, feeling energy radiate from his core out to the crowd. He could feel the ripple of ideas passing through them, a new current of hope mingling with their laughter, but the doubt still lurked somewhere in the back of his mind, a weight that settled deep. Were they ready to take on so much? Would they face the kind of backlash that could come from challenging the status quo? Directly across from him, the instigator remained. The smirk was gone, replaced by a brow furrowed in contemplation. Jake studied him, the tension between their worlds palpable. What would it take to break through the walls people built around their hearts? "Listen up." Alex's voice cut through Jake's thoughts. "Everyone here, including our doubters, has a story to tell. Let us listen as much as we share." A wave of agreement washed over the crowd. Heads nodded. Those who hesitated before were stepping forward like petals unfurling in the warmth of the sun. For every person who joined their plan, Jake could feel his spirit lift. They were transforming skepticism into conversation. He watched as the once skeptical people began to exchange stories, laughter blooming where doubt had once taken root. Suddenly, they were a part of something larger than themselves. "Gather around, everyone," Mr. Thompson shouted, drawing attention. His voice, rich and warm, resonated with authority. "We can't just accept gifts from our community, we need to give back. Let us make a schedule and stick to it. Volunteering isn't just a duty, it's a gratitude." Jake's chest swelled with pride. The momentum was building steadily, like a wave cresting toward the shore. Yet that unsettling thought crawled back again. What if the commitment he and Alex felt so passionately wasn't received by everyone? What if they couldn't bridge the gaps that remained? He glanced at the instigator one more time, trying to read his expression. The shadows of uncertainty still lingered around them, but Jake felt a pull, an instinct urging him to try. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" He called to the instigator, his voice steadying even as his heart raced. The murmuring crowd quieted, attention shifting to the unexpected challenge. Jake took a deep breath, ready to step boldly into the unknown. This wasn't just about his bravery anymore. It was about the veterans, the community, and building a bridge where there had once been hostility. What is it going to take for us to get on the same side? Jake asked directly, his eyes locking onto the instigator. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. All around them, the fair continued, laughter and joyous chatter swirled, blurred with the distant music. The moment felt suddenly crucial, heavy with potential. Would they find common ground? Could one conversation spark a shift in perception? As eyes watched, Jake's heart thudded harder, and he realized this was where the journey truly began. The instigator's gaze hardened for a moment, as if sizing Jake up. The crowd hushed, the festival sounds dimming to a dull thrum as expectation filled the space between them. Jake's palms were clammy, but he stood firm, a determination flickering inside him. "Listen," the instigator finally said, his voice low but clear. "You think just asking me to join your little group will change things? You don't know what I've dealt with. You don't know where I've come from." A chorus of murmurs surged through the crowd. Jake's heart sank a little, but he pressed on. "I want to know. We want to hear your story. Our fight is about understanding, about connection. Help us bridge that gap." There was a hesitation, a moment where the tension almost snapped. The corners of the instigator's mouth twitched, as if he was on the verge of sharing something real. Instead, he looked away, scanning the crowd. I don't have time for this," he muttered, but his voice lacked the conviction it once had. "Then let us make time," Jake urged, his voice rising just a notch above the festivity. "We all have scars. Isn't it time we started to heal together?" The instigator's eyes shifted, annoyance flickering momentarily across his face, then subsiding to reveal something softer. "Healing isn't as simple as you think. Isn't it worth trying?" Jake countered, desperation creeping into his tone. "We can start small. Just share something. If you speak, maybe we can all understand better, and it might make a difference." Suddenly, an unexpected volley of energy rippled through the crowd. People leaned in closer, eyes shining with curiosity and support. It was infectious, the idea of opening up, of taking a chance. They didn't just want to listen. They were ready to embrace vulnerability. The instigator inhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping slightly. Jake could see the internal battle waging, fear, apprehension, and something else, perhaps a flicker of hope. "Fine," he finally relented, gripping a nearby wooden fence post as if it were a lifeline. "But don't expect me to unveil my life story in one breath." The crowd shifted again, anticipation crackling like electricity. Jake held his breath, desperately hoping this bridge was just about to form. "My brother served. He came back different," the instigator began, and with those words, a hush settled over the fairgrounds. "He was lost in a way I didn't understand. And I didn't know how to help him." A ripple of shared pain swept through the people nearby. Families exchanged glances, some grasping hands, others wiping away unshed tears. Jake felt a stirring in his heart, a bonding thread weaving through the crowd. "I watched him fade," the instigator continued, vulnerability spilling into the air. "There was anger and embarrassment in him, anger directed at me. I wished I could pull him back, but it felt impossible." Jake felt that weight too, resonating deep within his chest. They shared a universal struggle: loss, grief, and reconnection. The fair atmosphere vibrated with empathy, building a bridge that had seemed out of reach a moment ago. "Sometimes," the instigator said, "it feels like we can't talk about it without reopening wounds." "But those wounds are what connect us," Jake replied, his heart racing at the raw power of this moment. "We can help each other." The instigator looked up, meeting Jake's gaze with newfound intensity. "You really think people will listen?" "Yes," Jake said resolutely. "We're here. This is our chance." The crowd seemed to inhale collectively, holding onto the growing connection. Eyes widened, and slowly but surely, people began to share their own stories of loss, regret, and hope. One by one, they took the floor, peeling back layers of hesitation, creating a chorus of voices that reverberated with empathy. In that moment, as stories intertwined and laughter mixed with tears, Jake felt the walls around their hearts beginning to crumble. The path ahead was still uncertain, but now it felt possible. As the sunlight dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over their gathering, Jake realized this was only the beginning. But would they continue to forge ahead together, or would fear pull them back into silence? This new understanding swirled in his mind, a question lingering, heavy with promise. Where would this renewed sense of connection take them next? As the stories flowed, the atmosphere began to shift. It wasn't just about connection anymore. It was a wild mix of healing and unearthing shared pain. Each voice added another layer to the tapestry they were weaving together. Laughter intertwined with tears, showcasing the complexity of human experience. Jake could see it in the faces around him, eyes glistening with a new light, hearts cracking open like fragile eggs at the promise of something more. Just then, a mother holding her son stepped forward, her voice quavering but resilient. "I lost my husband last year," she began, and the crowd instinctively fell silent once more. "He wasn't just my partner, he was my foundation. Every day since he left, I've felt like I'm walking on sand, grasping for something solid beneath me." Jake felt a sudden swell in his chest, a deep ache of empathy conflicting with a burning sense of camaraderie. It was remarkable how her words resonated, echoing sentiments he had felt before but hadn't vocalized. He almost jumped at the sound of the crowd's collective sigh, as though they were all breathing out the weight of their burdens together. The instigator shifted beside Jake, his face reflecting the same mix of pain and understanding. For the first time, Jake sensed hesitation dissolving into a willingness to share more. It was as if they were standing on the brink of something monumental. "Tell us more," Jake urged, but not just to her. He wished the instigator would find the courage to say something too. "Your story matters." A palpable connection sparked between them. The mother continued, revealing how she struggled to fill the void left behind, searching for ways to honor her husband's memory while raising their son alone. The boy, clutching her hand tightly, seemed to absorb every word she spoke, his small eyes reflecting an understanding beyond his years. As more stories emerged, the instigator leaned slightly closer. Jake could almost see the thoughts firing in his mind, the walls around him beginning to thaw. He decided to risk it. "You've got something important to say," he said quietly to the instigator, feeling a bond between them growing stronger. The tension hung thick in the air. "What if no one cares?" The instigator whispered back, his brow furrowing with doubt. "They care," Jake insisted, conviction solid in his voice. "You felt it when you first started sharing. We're all listening. We want to hear you." He took a deep breath, gathering the courage of the crowd's collective heartbeat. The instigator's gaze flickered from the mother and son back to Jake. Something shifted, something that felt almost holy, like a faint dawn breaking the night. "Fine," he said, a firm note in his voice. "But if I'm sharing this, it's because I believe it matters." He stepped closer to the edge of the crowd, the sun now beginning to set, painting the world in hues of orange and purple. "What you all should know is," and just like that, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble, the current of the moment pulling everyone into a shared purpose. The flicker of hope in Jake's heart exploded into a flame, but he had no idea how transformative the next words would be. Before the instigator could let it all out, a loud crash echoed from the fairground, cutting through their moment of vulnerability. Heads turned, startled murmurs ricocheted around them, and the scene shifted from one of unity to sudden uncertainty. "What was that?" someone called out, a hint of panic rising in their voice. Jake's heart raced as he took stock of the crowd's reactions. They were all poised on edge now, the fragile bond they had just begun to form threatened by the unknown. Would they retreat back into their shells, or pull together even tighter in the face of danger? Jake took a step forward, adrenaline fueling his resolve. "Let us find out together," he shouted, trying to rally the crowd back into unity. As they began to move toward the source of the noise, Jake felt the weight of the moment shift. The instinct to connect and understand hung in the air, But what revelation awaited them just beyond the shadows? The crowd surged forward, a river of uncertainty mixed with determination. Jake took the lead, pushing through the throngs of people, his breath coming in fast bursts. Each heartbeat seemed to echo in his ears, drumming a nervous rhythm that matched the growing unease among them. As they rounded a corner, the scene unfolded before them. A stall had collapsed, its wooden frame splintered against the ground. The smell of popcorn and cotton candy lingered in the air, mixing with a sudden gust of wind that whipped through the fairgrounds. A little girl cried near the wreckage, her face streaked with dirt and tears, while a man worked to calm her, his hands trembling with urgency. Jake's heart raced at the sight. The warmth of connection he'd felt just moments ago seemed to evaporate, yet now it rushed back in a different form, igniting a further commitment to help. "Is everyone all right?" Jake called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. The crowd hesitated. Fear was palpable, but there was a fire slowly igniting in their hearts too. They weren't backing down. They were standing up. The boy with the mother stepped forward, still holding her hand. "I can help," he shouted, his small voice rising above the murmur. "I can get the nurse." Inspired by his bravery, others joined him in stepping closer to the fallen stall. Jake felt a shift inside of him. The unity they had formed over heartfelt stories was transforming into a collective force capable of confronting this danger. "Okay, let us clear the area," Jake shouted. "Make sure everyone is safe." People began moving as one, some pushing aside debris while others ushered the frightened children to the sidelines. It was a beautiful, chaotic dance of humanity, grounded in empathy, and Jake felt the weight of that togetherness. The man tending to the little girl looked up and met Jake's eyes. "She's okay, but we need to get everyone away from here until we can check for more injuries," he said, his hands still shaking as he brushed dirt from her cheeks. "I can help too," Jake replied, stepping closer. "We need to make sure no one is stuck under there." As he knelt next to the wreckage, he felt the instigator at his shoulder. The man hadn't yet spoken, but standing side by side with Jake, he seemed rooted in newfound purpose. Together, they lifted a fallen beam, revealing the space beneath. Just then, one person cried out, pointing at a shadow beneath the debris. "There's someone trapped." Jake's heart soared and dropped all at once. "Help!" He could feel the need for everyone to band together. "We need more hands." It was electrifying, the way people surged forward. They squatted down, peering under the tangle of wood and fabric. As courage wrapped around them like a warm blanket, hands reached beneath to pull a small figure into the light. It was another child, a boy, dusty but unharmed. Relief washed over the crowd, mixed with gasps of disbelief and celebration as the boy was hoisted onto a broad shoulder. As laughter shattered their tension, the mother and son stood at the edge, tears lighting their cheeks like a rainbow shining through the storm. Yet amidst this moment of triumph, the instigator stepped forward, a spark flickering in his eyes. He cleared his throat, a rare sincerity feeding the air. "I wanted to tell you all something when I lost my brother. He was my best friend. I never talked about it because I thought it didn't matter, but maybe it does." The crowd slowed, their hearts landing silently on the wings of his confession. The gravity of his words weighed heavily, yet it brought with it the sweetness of connection that had begun earlier, before the chaos. A hush fell over them, waiting for his next phrase to take flight. Jake held his breath. Just when he thought they would strike gold, would it be enough to break the silence anew? And then, the night around them rumbled again. A distant echo of thunder rolled across the sky, mingling with their collective anticipation. Shadows began to stretch longer under the setting sun, charging the atmosphere with a growing sense of urgency. What else had yet to be uncovered? What awaited them beyond the palpable tension, where stories long held were about to be freed? Suddenly, the ground trembled again, more violently this time, as if the earth itself was reacting to the weight of the moment. The crowd held its breath, eyes darting to the sky where dark clouds rolled in fast, swallowing the fading light. Jake felt an unease shuffle through him, a chill that mimicked the wind whipping through the fairgrounds. He had never fully grasped the depth of the weight people carried until this very moment. The instigator, feeling the tension, lifted his chin, grounding himself in the connection that felt like an invisible web pulling everyone closer together. "My brother," he continued, the tremor in his voice unmistakable. "He was everything to me. And when I didn't say anything, when I lost him, it felt like I'd lost myself too. We all carry losses, don't we?" A murmur passed through the crowd, heads nodding, as unspoken grief connected them. For the first time, Jake saw variations of pain reflected in so many faces, a gallery of grief mingled with hope. "Let us share," said the man, stepping further into the center of the circle forming. "Let us not let this pain separate us any longer." People looked around, uncertainty in their eyes, but they were ready. A woman stepped out from the crowd, wiping away tears. "I lost my sister too," she said, her voice rising and breaking. "We never had a chance to say goodbye." Jake stepped closer, feeling the urge to hold her hand in support. He felt the strength of community start to swell like a tide, one that could wash away sorrows instead of letting them drown in silence. Another voice broke through the boy who first insisted helping. And I'm scared too. This fair is supposed to be fun," but now he trembled, but his words bottled pain, transforming them into a spark of courage. The crowd leaned in, uniting in their shared vulnerability. "Tell your stories," Jake urged, casting his gaze across the gathering. "Let it out. Let us honor those we've lost by sharing who they were. They mattered, they still matter." And just like that, floodgates opened. Voices flared. Each one recounted memories, the cherished laughs echoing through the years, the hugs that felt warming even in the coldest winters, the lessons learned that felt futile until they were named and shared. Each memory sparked another, creating a fire that slowly ignited passions and friendships, but he could feel the air shifting again. As beautiful as this moment was, the storm clouds brewed still above them. The wind grew gusty, sending leaves swirling like scattered thoughts, reminding Jake of how fleeting life could be. The gravity of the moment squeezed his heart even as their voices lifted together. They had uncovered that which bound them: loss, yes, but also resilience. Yet, amid shared stories, the crackle of thunder barked in the distance, stark and intrusive. "We have to finish this before the storm hits," Jake called out, desperately attempting to rally their solidarity. Jake took a moment, locked eyes with the instigator, whose resolve flickered like a candle fighting to stay alight. He could see the fear mirrored back at him, yet he also saw undeniable strength born from honesty. "Together," Jake said, his voice steady. "Together we'll face whatever comes next. We're not alone." And just like that, the bond solidified, their determination a palpable entity of its own. But before they could plan, before they could brace for the coming storm, another loud crash echoed from deep within the fairgrounds, drawing all attention. "What was that?" Someone gasped, and Jake felt a jolt of adrenaline. As they turned towards the sound, shadows shifted, and the ground beneath trembled once more, this time with dreadful expectation. What lay ahead? What would they have to confront together, now that they'd uncovered the strands of their shared losses? The storm clouds hung low over the fairgrounds, thick with tension and uncertainty. The joy that had built just moments before felt fragile, almost glass-like, ready to shatter at the first sign of trouble. But the tide of bravery surged around Jake and his new allies. They stood closer, fortified by the stories they'd shared, each one a thread weaving them into something stronger. "Stay together," Jake yelled, his voice commanding as everyone turned to the source of the noise. Panic simmered just below the surface, but the strength of their unity began to illuminate the fear. They had already faced darkness together. They could do it again. Another resounding crash echoed, and the crowd shifted restlessly. The little girl who had cried before was now clinging to her mother, wide eyes reflecting the anxiety that brewed in everyone's chest. Jake stepped forward with Alex at his side, a silent promise shared between them. They were in this fight together. "What is going on?" one of the townsfolk shouted, fear coating their words. Jake gestured towards the crumbling stall. "We have to make sure everyone is okay. Let us check for injuries." His command acted like a wave, surging through the crowd. As people began to move, shakily but decisively, A familiar figure emerged from the shadows, the instigator. "I'll help," he said, his voice steadier than before. Jake watched as the young man stepped forward, fists clenched, but eyes bright with resolve. There was no anger left in him, only a desire to do something, anything. "Great," Jake replied, heart swelling with the sight of a sense of purpose in the instigator's gaze. "Let us work as a team." They rushed toward the stall, arms and hands everywhere, pushing aside debris while shouting updates to one another. The momentum surged, electric with the thrill of collective action. Each collision with doubt that once pulsed through Jake began to fade. This was more than a fight, it was a call for community, a testament born from darkness. Suddenly, Jake froze, mixed emotions swirling through him. He turned to the instigator, a realization blooming within him. "You're fighting for something too, aren't you?" He met the young man's gaze, trying to see the threads that bound them. "This matters to you." "Yeah." The instigator's voice dropped to a whisper as he looked away momentarily, gathering his thoughts. "I never understood how to share when my brother was alive. But maybe we can help others find their way back." He straightened, a flicker of inspiration sparking in his eyes. "Let us not just fix this, let us start healing." Jake's heart pounded, the depth of the moment shaking his core. "Yes, let us be that beacon." He turned, addressing everyone with urgency and hope. "If we unite in this chaos, we can show what our community stands for." People nodded, a new determination coursing through them. Together, they pulled more debris away, revealing the full extent of the collapsed stall. An older vendor stood beside it, shaken but uninjured. "Thank you," he stammered, gratitude flooding his words. "We need all hands on deck. Let us keep everyone safe." As night began to envelop the fairgrounds, a glow emerged in the faces of those gathered. Every laugh, every shout turned into a thread stitching a tapestry of resilience. The storm might roll in, but they were ready to face it together. Soon, Jake spotted the little girl again. She stood watching from the sidelines, her face so small yet filled with the courage of a warrior. "You're brave," Jake called, and her eyes lit up like the stars above. "You're part of this too." And, just like that, a chain reaction sparked. "Yes, we are all part of this." Numerous voices echoed through the crowd. "We've got this." The collective spirit swelled, fear turning to fuel, aiming toward action. A crack of thunder broke through the night, but Jake felt an unyielding certainty bloom within him. He glanced at Alex, who was still there by his side, shoulders squared with conviction. Their friendship had grown. It wasn't just about veterans anymore, it was about all of them, every voice they shared. Together, the wind howled, yet as they braced against it, they found strength within their community, deeper than any storm. This was their moment to shine, to support one another, and to rise with stories that connected them all. "We're ready," Jake shouted into the wind. "We're not afraid." The fairground lights flickered as the rain began to fall, but Jake felt the warmth of camaraderie rise, no longer just a flicker of hope, but a full-fledged bonfire lighting the way. He knew then that despite the darkness that loomed, they would rise together. It was time to embrace the storm and face whatever came next with open hearts and unwavering resolve. "Are you with us?" he cried out, not just to the crowd, but the universe itself. A resounding cheer erupted, a chorus of voices echoing through the air, harmonizing action with purpose. The storm would come, they would weather it side by side, forging bonds in the fires of shared experience. As the downpour began, washing away fear and doubt, Jake smiled. They were a family now, united, transforming adversity into a force for change. Together, they would become a beacon for love, hope, and healing, showing the world that light can thrive even in the darkest of storms. And as they geared up to face whatever lay ahead, one thing became crystal clear: they were never alone again. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss out on our next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below about your feelings on this heartwarming ending. And you must share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to help us spread the love and unity.